Welcome back to News Hub, and discussions will continue straight away. Remember, you can always follow us on Twitter, SilverN24, hashtag News Hub. Go on iOS and Play Store so you can download our app and you can follow and watch every single one of our wonderful programs we have on a weekly or day-to-day basis. Right, so this is what we're going to be looking at now. The politics of petrol prices was the biggest story last week, thanks to all of the drama that happened around the PPRA putting up a late night or early morning template saying that the landing price of petroleum had risen to 189 naira per litre. So by the time you did all the calculations and threw in all the other extra costs, it came up to between 209 naira to 212 naira per litre. Usually they would take the upper band, or the lower band, which would be 212 naira, which is what happened. And the PPRA shortly afterwards came out and said that wasn't the idea of the template. Pulled down that template. You had Timothy Silver, Minister of State for Petroleum, saying no, there was no increase in petroleum, and the PPRA had said that the reason it didn't make any sense. They were having a meeting with Labour already on the price of the petrol, so they couldn't go and then just yank the price and blah, blah, blah. Well, all that was going on, and all the who did what, who did nothing. The price of petrol at several stations across the country had risen. There were reports of people buying at 210, 212 naira, 202 naira, and the confusion continues to this morning. So, Shaun.
Yeah, Friday was very, I wasn't in Lagos actually, but I got, of course, if you watch Silverbird News 24, you get all the news fresh and crispy, so to speak. So when we got the information that there was something on the site, of course, we were there, we're first to be there to report and all of that. However, the retraction brought in more conversation than even the reaction that people first brought about when they heard that there was an increase in the price of fuel. Yeah. And that brings to question how information is managed within federal government parastatals, or let me say people generally. Yeah. Very important. If, for instance, an information will be dished out and then within hours it will be taken down, it must be that it wasn't well thought through or not well, I mean, I still can't come to terms with that within 24 hours, you post something on the verified Twitter handle, verified social media page of a government parastatal, and then you now pull it down. It was even on their website. It was on the website everywhere. PPRA website. They got a document, a PDF document put up there, and it showed the breakdown line by line of how it had happened. And so to say that the people who put out that thing don't understand the meaning of what was put there, I think it's insulting to the people who... that was what it implied. That was what it implied. For the monthly templates to show you what happens on a monthly basis. Maybe it hadn't taken effect yet, but immediately this happened, this was a ripple effect, which is why people say when policies are taken, do people really sit down and measure what the impact or consequences? Let's replay the scenario if it happens. What happens next? And what happened next was pandemonium all across major petrol stations. You have even the NNPC station. The guy called me on radio and said, look, I am at the NNPC station at blah, blah, blah place. And I could hear the fuel attendant. And he said, ask the guy, how much are you selling fuel? The guy said, 210 naira. He said, you see, you heard him? I said, yes, I heard him. He said, 210 naira. One guy went and said, I mean, you can hear that they pulled the thing down, that they're no longer, the Minister of Petroleum, Timothy Silver, says that there's been no plan to increase and it shouldn't be increased. The man said, the petrol attendant said, what do you say? He said that the thing has been pulled down. Online, they said that it's now back to 162 naira. He said, go and buy the fuel online. What an advice. Let's let you know that we have our guests join us from Lagos. We have Victoria Ibezim Ohairi, the Executive Director of Spaces for Change, who joins us virtually this morning. Once again, nice to have you, Victoria Ibezim Ohairi, on the program. All right, we hope that we see her face in a bit. In Abuja, we have a journalist as well as entrepreneur who joins us from Abuja studios, the Adiola Aguru. Adiola, nice to have you on News Hub today. All right, Adiola, so nice to have you on the program today.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
All right, let's start with you. Yours in Abuja started like a couple of weeks ago, perhaps 2 weeks ago, where there was panic buying, queues everywhere. What's been your experience with the new, uncertainties around the pricing of petrol in the country?
As a media practitioner who has done a lot of things on sensitization, information is key. We don't just wake up one day and find out that there's a long queue everywhere, and everybody is shocked, because that's the word to use, because you're going about your normal duties, and the next thing you find out, you have to queue for long hours. I could remember I had to do a live video because the experience to me was overwhelming, especially as a business person. You find out you can't move. So I think those involved, or those whose duty it is to inform us, should sit down and let us know what we should know about increases. And when you talk about sensitization, you break it down. You let the common person or the ordinary person know why this is so. You don't just put it on us and we go out there, we can't find it. You have to let us know why, and then when all this would end. So I think they really need to go back to the drawing board and give a department the task of informing the nation. It's not just about Abuja or Lagos. It's everywhere. So it's actually bigger than just going out there. It could have psychological effect on people, because you now have to start thinking, how do I adjust? What do I do? How do I survive? Because already we have enough pains. We have, everything has gone up, electricity tariff, everything. To now cope with these increments in petroleum and the prices of PMS, it's really, really devastating. Seriously, it's really devastating. But we could understand if somebody has the task of informing us, this is why it is so. And then they put measures in place so that we can, of course it will bite hard, but at least something to cushion the effect. Okay, this is what we are putting. For those of us who have cars, you don't have to ride your cars every day. There are buses in place. There are trains in place to shuttle, to move from one place to the other. You can't just come one day and then the price of petrol has gone up. How do you want us to survive? So that's my own opinion. Serious information, sensitization, and then the effect, how to cushion it. You can't just be bringing everything on us. We'll die. So that's my own opinion.
That responsibility to communicate truth and what is in clear-cut terms to people that are audiences, so to speak. In this particular case, the journalist did not do anything wrong, because we got the information from the right quarters. We got it from the social media, verified social media handles, in fact, the website of the agency, so to speak. Did you ever think at any point in time on Friday that perhaps something happened, but something had to be changed to bring things back to status quo? Did you have any kind of feeling in that regard?
Of course. Like I said earlier, you don't just bring change. Let me use that word, change, because that word is beginning to have another meaning to us. I think it should have been positive change. The slogan should have been positive change. So let me use that change also. You don't just bring that change on people without putting something in place. Without, like the experience I had, like I told you, it was really frustrating. So I think something should be done. Somebody should actually address us on this issue and tell us, this is the way forward. This is where we're coming from. This is the way forward. And it shouldn't be sudden. Any sudden change is bound to have adverse effect on people. It's bound to make everything go haywire. So I think it should be a gradual process. Information, like we said, inform us, prices will go up, people would protest, definitely. How many people are surviving the way it is? As it were, not many people are able to survive. People are just like hopeful that day in, day out, things will change. But the way it is, you now come one day, they go out there, No, 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 no. That's not the way it is done. And we shouldn't continue to pay a lip service to things like that. We should really feel the impact it has on people and then bring the truth closer to home. See, Nigerians, so I don't believe in all this grammar they speak. Just tell them, Nigerians, because of this, because we cannot continue to subsidize the cost of petrol or other projects or whatever oil we use in Nigeria because of that, for this reason, because some people are benefiting from it to the detriment of others. So we are removing this thing, but it won't take effect now so that you people can adjust. That adjustment is necessary. You can adjust. If it is to find another avenue, if it is to be climbing bicycles, if it is to be trekking, at least you would know. So I think they should put measures in place. But I was just joking when I said bicycles and trekking and all that. But the government of the day should do something really constructive. Put buses on the street without stealing money, because that one too, they would come and then they will use it as an avenue. Some people will use this as an avenue to steal. So I'm saying, put things in place. Let's know the cost from wherever you are bringing those things from. Let them flood the streets, the major cities in Nigeria, major towns and cities. Let them be everywhere so that you know, oh, like abroad, you know your bus numbers.
Thank you, Adiola Guru. Adiola Guru, thank you very much.
Yes,
thank you for your great opening. We're going to cross now to Victoria Ohahiri Ibezim. Victoria Ohahiri Ibezim is the Executive Director, Spaces for Change. A pleasure to have you join us on News Hub this morning. All right, if you unmute your device, I think we will hear you.
Good morning, viewers. Good morning, listeners.
Let's try again, Victoria. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Brilliant.
I can hear you very, very well.
And we can hear you, so it's a two-way communication now. Thank you very much, and a pleasure to have you join us this fine morning.
Thank you for
having me. And it's the biggest story in town, well, beginning from last week. Millions of Nigerians in no man's land, especially when it comes now to understanding how the petroleum price. I mean, they don't care about the mathematics and everything. They just want to have fuel in their vehicles and move from point A to point B.
To point B.
As an environmentalist, I'm sure that you're probably thinking when you hear no more subsidy removal, no more subsidy, and you see subsidies again on the pages of the papers. It gets you thinking about what is a sustainable way out of this nightmare we find ourselves in as a nation.
Yeah, it's a long journey, and that's why the shops are having all of these multifaceted effects. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not just possible to wake up one morning and remove petroleum subsidies. Maybe that is what the recent situation is telling us. What has happened, I think you've already mentioned, PPRA, they adjusted their template, and in response to that adjustment, oil marketers also adjusted the fuel prices. But PPRA, for us to understand what's going on, you need to go back to what PPRA has said. They said they have announced the introduction of what they call the market-based pricing regime for PMS, for petrol regulation. And it's been gazetted already by the federal government. And what does that market pricing regime, what does it require? It says that prices are to be determined by market realities in line with the dictates of market forces. And one of the conditions for the implementation of that market-based pricing regime for PMS regulation is the monthly release of what they call the guiding price. And that guiding price reflects the current market fundamentals. So what that means is that they maintain a constant surveillance on the overarching indices to pricing policy, and they monitor the market trends on a daily basis. And that is what informs what comes out as guiding price. So what they said they have done is simply to post the guiding price. to say this is the guiding price. And what that means, this is the current price based on their monitoring of the pricing indices. So what has been happening in the country is that Nigeria's crude oil is refined abroad, because our 4 refineries with a total combined capacity of over 445,000 barrels per day, they are functioning at suboptimal capacity. So it means that the country is still depending on both substantial foreign exchange and other countries to refine their petroleum, which they import back the refined petroleum products for domestic consumption. So another indicator we have to look at is that the oil price and the international market is currently hovering around $70 per barrel. And the exchange rate, I think, is about depending on where you're looking at, 450, 480, 490, but it's close to 500. So all of these are basic indicators of the local pump price. So as long as the federal government continues to depend on petroleum products imported abroad based on the current exchange rate, it means that the landing costs of imported petroleum products are bound to go up, and resulting inevitably in high pump prices. And the only way to absorb the shock of high prices is through the return of petroleum subsidy. So with that reversal to old rates, that's 162, it means that NNPC, that is currently the sole importer of petroleum, will have returned to subsidizing petrol. So we are simply back to the era of fuel subsidies.
Before we even get reaction to things that happened on Friday, as a Nigerian, what is your understanding of this kind of deregulation of the oil sector by the government? Because what they told us before the deregulation, according to them, was that once it was done, the market forces, which was what you said a while ago, would be left to determine the prices of fuel, and that would create competition between independent marketers who would now have the opportunity to benchmark whatever they want to sell, and so prices would differ from one marketer to another. But that's not what we've had so far, because according to the truth on the ground, only federal government, NNPC, in terms of the federal government, imports fuel into the country while we await our refineries to come into play. What's your understanding of all of these things playing out? Do you think that the federal government really has its hands on the right way to drive this mono economy as it is? And how do we as a people stay firm until respite comes in terms of having our refineries beginning to work in the country, albeit maybe privately owned?
Thank you so much. You are very correct. I think what we're seeing, including when we hear about liberalization, deregulation, all these are outflows of some of the impacts of the neoliberal theories, market theories. So the question for us is, does Nigeria or our economy suited to those neoliberal market ideologies that are being promoted all over the world? You are correct when you said Nigeria said it has liberalized the downstream sector. You're also correct when Nigeria said it has eliminated the costly petroleum subsidies. But NNPC remains the sole importer of petrol. And that is not supposed to happen in a liberalized market economy. PPRA is also setting prices at fuel depots. That does not happen in a liberalized economy. So does this not acknowledgement? Is the government not acknowledging that the so-called liberalization is not suited to a local concept and as local context, and as such, it should be jettisoned? Then the second concern for us advocates is that, consistent with the tenets of transparency in the management of mineral resources, PPRA, in line with their market-based pricing regime for PMS regulation, they publish the guiding price every month, which advocates say, yes, we want to understand how you arrive at these prices. So they have done that. And based on that, we saw what happened, how just by posting it on their website, it can trigger reactions in the economy. So would this not force PPRA to embrace non-disclosure to avoid, causing the kind of pandemonium that happened last week? Then another question we should be asking is that if marketers could hide their prices, even when there is no confirmation, even when they have not received any directive from the authorities, is there not a pointer to what will happen when marketers are allowed to fully operate without regulatory controls? Then finally, I think we should also understand Nigerian economy is powered by petrol. Petrol is a social service commodity. So the cost of a liter of petrol, it affects access to the essentials of food, clothing, shelter, transportation, and energy use across the board. So Nigeria's current daily generation capacity, I think about 4,000 megawatts, is unable to meet the energy demands of over 200 million citizens. So that means that because of the constant electricity shortage, petrol has become, and inevitably become, an alternative source of energy for manufacturers, for households, for small and medium enterprises, for food, for agriculture. So anything that happens to petrol happens to the total economy. And again, with the rising fuel prices, it means that the energy expenditure will place a burden on whether it's household budgets, on poor households, on businesses, on industries. So there are questions. Does Nigeria need a liberalized market economy? These are questions that are now arising, and maybe our decision makers are beginning to see that to have an ideology that is beautiful at the global level is fine, but implementing it at the local level is also presenting its own challenges.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Let's get back to Adiola Agoro. And Adiola, there's something Victoria talked about that got me thinking. You know that the organized labor is in meeting with the government over this issue, and I'm sure it must have been an embarrassment to imagine that this had happened along the way. But I'll come to you on just what sort of crosshairs the labor movement is going forward after this break. Please stay with us.
The fight against COVID-19 is far from over. We are presently in the community transmission phase. Unfortunately, this is the most deadly part of its spread, and it's more prevalent in high-density areas. Don't become a statistic. Wash your hands frequently with soap and running water, or use a hand sanitizer, and remember to practice physical distancing at all times and avoid crowded places. But if you have no choice, you have the choice of wearing a face mask. Remember, it's not over till it's really over. This is a message from the Silverbird Group. Breaking news stories, insightful documentaries, news reports from around the globe, and original news content. Now available 24 hours daily on StarTimes Channel 109. Stream live on YouTube at www.youtube.com/SilverbirdN24 Live. Follow on Facebook at Silverbird News 24, on Twitter at Silverbird N24, and on Instagram at Silverbird N24. Silverbird News 24, the news never stops.
All right, welcome back, and big discussion. Forget the green. A lot of people are grimacing wherever they are, trying to understand and process what's happened over the weekend with the pricing of petrol. There's no clear pathway out of this one, but we're trying to see if we can understand and also help you two who are at home and watching make some sense of everything going on with the conversation. You can always join on social media, SilverbirdN24, hashtag News Hub. Adiola Agoro is still with us, as well as Victoria Ibezimo Aheri, who are resource persons in this great discussion. So Adiola, I was saying that it got me thinking, because when you imagine that you have organized labor sitting with the government trying to decide what sort of pricing should happen, I mean, if we didn't see this vote fast happen last week, we'd have had no idea that this was going on, and that labor now is in dire straits to try to explain to Nigerians that this pricing, it has really no power over in a deregulated economy. Well, on the other hand, it appears that they are being consulted by the government. You're an entrepreneur also too. What do you think in saying that this is the easy way out for organized labor as well as government in agreeing on what should be a pricing system for petrol in the country, when on the one hand the government says there is no more subsidy, and on the other hand labor has to turn back to its billions of its workers and followers and supporters and say, we got you guys a good deal. We are not going to increase price for the 8th time within a year.
Well, for me, I think subsidy is a scam. I don't want to go into the details of why I said so. I think the organized labor should do something in their meetings with the government to say they should hands off subsidy. And I think in a few months' time, people like Dangote and the rest of them, private bodies would come on board to be refining crude oil instead of us having to export crude out of the country at a cost and then bringing it back and then selling to us, and then they are now putting subsidy again, and then some people would go and claim this subsidy. At the end of the day, that's a very big burden on the government. I mean, if we were to be fair on the government, and if we are to be fair, I think subsidy is in fact, it's a big distraction from all the things they have to put. By the time you consider how much is being put or how much subsidy is, I'm not an economist, but I know that by the time you consider how much we consume and then the subsidy on that, you find out that that large chunk of money could be put to better use. So I think what the organized labor should be discussing right now should be how and when the private refineries will begin to go into operation, and then this will be available. Oil will be, fuel, PMS will be readily available. It's not going to be an overnight thing. It's going to come gradually. But by the time they go into refinery, by the time Dangote, for instance, starts in Zone and other ones all over Nigeria start refining crude oil, and they don't have to go up there and then bring it back, you can imagine the cost. I'm sure that this will drive the cost down. So I think that's what they should be discussing. They should be discussing, because when you talk about labor, everybody is involved in labor one way or the other. It's just that we have some bodies that are representing us. So everybody is affected. And when everybody is affected, it's not about the big grammar we keep speaking about this thing. No, we should simplify it. When are these refineries going to come on board? Like when we had GSM, when GSM came to Nigeria, a lot of people, we were buying SIM cards for 20,000 naira upwards. But by the time we had more people coming on board, private bodies and all that, everything went down. Now I think you can even buy your SIM card for 200 naira, 100 naira. It's even free in some places, and that's the way it's going to be. I'm not saying that PMS is going to be free. By the time all these private refineries begin to go into business, no. I'm just saying that the cost of everything will go down. So right now we should be discussing with the government about giving them that enabling environment to start, knowing when they are starting, and until they start, they should maintain the subsidy. They shouldn't remove it yet, but we should have a limited time. We should have like a window period when we know that, okay, everything will be operational with the private refineries in Nigeria, whether 6 months or 1 year. So government, they have been doing it. They've been giving us subsidy and all that. So I think they should just hold on for a little bit longer, so that, like I said, when it's too sudden, it has a very, very devastating effect on people. So right now, what they should be discussing should be who are the people with the licenses to have private refineries. When are they going to go into operations? Like in the power sector,
We'll come back to you in a bit. Victoria, let's have this conversation. We're reacting now, but there are some things on ground that are as visible as possible, where there are some others that we live on assumption based on the information provided to us by people in the authority. For instance, people that are in charge of the oil and gas business in the country at the national level. The Minister of State for Petrol Resources, Timothy Silva, did say on Friday that there wasn't going to be any increase in price of fuel until the talks are intended to hold between them and the Labour took place. However, the truth of the matter is we have a real life situation where we don't have our refineries working. The Vice President did talk about modular refineries that will be built across the country. We hear that there are a couple that are working at this in these present times, but the things they bring out that are grossly inadequate to really feed the domestic issues that we need, so to speak. How do you see us sustaining what we're going through now, bearing in mind that Dangote refinery may not open tomorrow? It will take a little while more. And the modular refineries seem not to be able to really cater to the needs of Nigerians. How do we, as the people, go about getting the best deal out of our present situation?
I said it at the beginning that it's a long journey. It's not just something. And I think what is also eroding public confidence in the reforms is what has happened in the past and some of the things happening at the moment. Going back to refineries, there's a lot of conversation about private refineries. It's not rocket science to run a refinery. There are refineries in other African countries, that Algeria, in Angola, in Cameroon, in Chad, in Congo, in Egypt, and even in Ghana. So if there are other countries, some of these are state-owned and some of these are privately owned. So the conversation for us is, why are our refineries not working? Why are we imagining that we need private sector participation for refineries to work? Why are we pushing that narrative? Why is it that in 2011, if you see the amount of money spent on petroleum subsidies, it would have been able to fix whatever problem is in our refineries? Why are we not opting for solutions that will better the lives of Nigerians? So these are questions that need to be asked. I don't even think that having private refineries come on board will ease the problems of pricing. With what marketers are doing, remember that marketers are private investors too. They are private sector participants. With what they are doing, just mere rumor, speculation of adjustment in prices, look at all across the country. So the business of businessmen is profit maximization. So if private refineries also come on board, their primary motive is profit maximization. It wouldn't be any different. So the questions really are, number one, Nigerians should demand, why are our refineries allowed to rot away? Are they being allowed to rot away and underperform so that private refineries can flourish? This is one question. The second is, there has been conversations about phasing subsidies. You don't just one morning cut off all forms of subsidies. In an economy where more than 60% of the population are living below, $1, earning less than 500. What are the social protection plans? I remember in 2012, after the January uprising, the government talked about safety nets, and that's how Shopee and a lot of programs emerged. What are the safety nets in place? And finally, we're talking about labor. Labor said they're constantly in talks with the government. And what are the issues? The wages. You cannot increase petroleum prices, which automatically triggers up the cost of every other thing by over 1,000%, and people continue to earn the same wage. You need to have a conversation about what wages should be in light of current high, skyrocketing, very high, high prices of goods and services. So these are the conversations that need to be had before we start talking about actual reforms. What do we do next? So we need to start from the, fundamentals, the ingredients. When we sort them out, then we can go to the big reform issues.
You know, Victoria, as an environmental, I'm sure you're familiar with the often repeated phrase, anything which is not valued will oftentimes be abused. You don't value the air, we suffer air pollution. You don't value the land, we suffer land pollution. And with a resource like crude oil, we see what cheap oil is doing to the Niger Delta, for example. If you put out a poll to people in Niger Delta and told them that you take away the oil and give them their life back and they can fish and they can do stuff with their farms, they probably will say to hell with the oil and let them have life as it is, like every other person will have. So here we are in this dire straits here, where you have the middle or short term and then the long term. The short term is the subsidy, and I guess the long term is to see how we can have alternative energy in use and do away with fossil fuels and all the problems we're faced with. But it appears we are stuck on the short term or medium term, and we cannot increase wages, so we want the price of oil to continue to tank at the detriment of what is happening to the people who have the oil around them or people who are using the oil. Help us understand the danger we as a country are going with in pushing this agenda forward, that we continue to have cheap oil and have to use the crude oil in an unsustainable way we're using presently, and how it's going to affect us in the long run.
Yeah, the shift to a low carbon future is a global campaign. Okay. It's not just starting in Nigeria. There is a gradual shift away from fossil fuel subsidies, and with some countries looking and promoting some other alternatives. Just like Nigeria is also among the countries of the world, trying to implement a transition to cleaner fuels. But the trends we are seeing do not suggest that those trends may see the light of day very soon. For instance, again, I did mention earlier that when we talk about fossil fuel, in some countries, petrol is just used only for cars and mobility. In Nigeria, when we're discussing petrol, we're not discussing only about the environment. We're not only discussing about mobility. We're discussing about energy for powering, even for you to be in your studio to report live. We're talking about even in the household for you to be able to cook and preserve your food. We're talking about industries running on petrol. We're talking about small-scale businesses, the vendors, the hairdressers, the barbing salons, the women selling frozen fish. All of them, all of the entire economy is powered by petrol. So our own shift has to respond to those shocks and realities. Petrol for us is not just a fossil fuel that needs to be phased out overnight. We do not have alternatives. We are not the infrastructure to promote transition to a low carbon future is not in place. And the bad news about it is that the more we depend on fossil fuel, the more it makes it almost very difficult for us to realize our transition to a cleaner energy. Let me give you an example. Well, we did a study, Species for Change did a study that was released in 2020, where we were looking at
we lost you to the connection there. Very poor. We hope to get reconnected with you in the course of the program. In case you just joined us on News Hub, we're taking a look at the pricing of petroleum products, especially petrol itself in the country, which brought about, actually this was brought about the issue that happened on Friday, where it was announced on the social media handles and in fact the website of the PPRA, and that there was an increase in the price of fuel, which got many people thinking and running up and down, so to speak. So this morning we're just trying to see, for instance, let me go back to you, Adiola, and let's talk about this issue. Somebody said something, and I want us to talk about it this morning, that perhaps what we saw on Friday on the website, social media handles of the agency, is something that is coming very soon. That's just been postponed. That's just like postponing the evil day. What do you think?
Well, hasn't it come? The evil days are here already. Because what's the difference between 190 that I bought it for? The difference between that 190 and 212. The difference is just, the margin is just very small. So it's, we're not really postponing it. It has come and it has to be addressed. That's my simple answer. It has come, the evil days are here, and they said they yanked it off their website. But see, when you have posted something, that's an indication that that is what you want to do. So yanking it off was because, okay, the reactions of people reacted, and negatively to them, but positively to us, because of course, definitely,
Deola, you know, some people would argue with you. Some people would argue with you. Deola, if you can hear me.
See how we would take it. And at the end of the day, it's still going to come. It is still going to come.
Some would argue with you, Adiola, if, for instance, Asiboy fuel at 162 naira, full tank, maybe over the weekend, maybe Friday, I'm still using it up until now, and I hear that this morning it sells at 162 naira per liter. If you deduct 162 naira, if you deduct 162 naira from the supposed 210 or 212 naira, that should be operational now, should the news on Friday be, work to a living at this point in time, then I'll be paying a whole lot. And maybe the evil day is not what we're looking for, because that margin could mean a lot for instance, transporters from some other people that earn so much less than maybe we do, so to speak. So between now and the next, I know there is a monthly ritual that the agency does to let us know how much we're paying for the month. For the month of March, we hear that nothing changes. The meeting between the federal government and Labour, we hear still, we don't know the day that it's going to hold and the things that will happen. How can we, at this point in time, as a nation, I asked the question before, but let me bring it from another angle. How can government start to think very fast, away from the plans that they had? That we must always have more than a plan, I suppose, such that it seems as if this is not working. What would you, if you had the opportunity, what would you be telling government to do at this point in time? Because it seems this is not working for the people, but they have the realities on ground of how much they have to pay to import, to export, to dispense and sell to marketers. What should they be doing?
Well, I guess I'm talking to them, but if we have to put it in this way, that if I had my way of talking to those who I should be talking to, I would plead with them that they should consider the pains we're all going through at the moment. The prices of everything have gone up. Foodstuff, electricity, school fees for children, everything, because that's the effect it would have. When something goes up, it bounces back on other things. So I'll just tell them to really go back to the drawing board, see what they can do to drive down the price. If possible, put it at what we're used to. Or even, in fact, sometimes I don't even know how much I buy per liter, because you go to a filling station and it's this price, you go to another filling station, it's this price. But at least let it not be a sharp increment from what we are used to the new thing, the new price, 200 and something they are suggesting. For now, I'm pleading with them, they should consider what we are going through. A lot of people have reached their limit with despair. They are hopeless. They are wondering what's the next thing. And then you bring this on them. It's like a curse. It's the kind of pain you can't remove from them. A lot of people, since that Friday, even before Friday, I think we started experiencing this about 2 weeks ago, when we suddenly found out we couldn't get fuel easily. So since then, a lot of people have been wondering what's going to happen. And as the other person said, a lot of the economy actually depends on PMS. For those in private businesses, even government businesses, you find out that some ministries, after a while, they shut down. They shut down because they say they can't afford the cost of petrol. You go to some offices to work and they tell you, in fact, in some offices, they use their phones. If you go at a particular time, they use their phone because there's no electricity, so they have to depend on generator. And the generator, they can't buy, because by the time you consider the volume they use. So you cannot imagine if government establishments are suffering, you cannot imagine what common people like us, are suffering in our homes. We cannot come here and speak English and all that, but we still go back home. We buy petrol. We use petrol for our cars. We use petrol to drive, in fact, everything. So they should consider it's like our blood. By the time you are increasing it and we can't get it easily, and you take your pocket, you know what you earn in a month, and a large chunk of that is going towards buying petrol. What's going to happen to you? Are you going to be drinking the petrol? You have to eat. You have commitments, family commitments. In fact, the cost of this thing has affected many people's health. Not getting a loan has driven the blood pressure of so many people up. So what that means is that we are going to have a country with citizens that are sick in the mind and in their spirits. And when you are sick in your mind and in your spirit, there's no productivity. You can't produce everything. You're not even thinking about where your next where your next meal is going to come from. You are thinking about where the next money will come from to buy petrol. That's the thing now. You are thinking about how to move from one point to the other, because definitely everything will go up. For those who use public transportation, the cost of everything will go up. From, let's say, maybe from Yanya to a place now, maybe it was 100 naira or 200 naira before. Definitely it will go to 300 naira for one-way trip, or 400 naira. So how do we survive? So I'm begging those who are in charge, from the presidency to the ministers in charge to everybody, to please look into this. Whatever they can do to withhold that plan for now, let them just stop it. Let them stall it while they go back, sit down and see how they can bring the effect, where the effects can be reduced on people, where people can actually have hopes in this country. Because this last one is the last straw that will break the camel's back. It's the last straw that will just finish people up. So I think I'm talking to them now. I hope they are listening. Whatever grammar we are speaking, see, let me tell you something. I'm not here to speak grammar, because the ordinary man doesn't want this grammar. He wants solution. He wants to be heard. He wants people to feel his pain. He wants them to know that he is dying. He's living, but he's dying. He has hypertension because he has to cope with the high cost of everything. This is not the change they were expecting.
All right, thank you. Let's get back to Victoria. And it's a passionate plea. I can imagine the people on the streets in Abuja and Port Harcourt, Kano, most of the major cities in the country are wondering what next to do. So here's a dilemma here. We've got a 2021 budget that's been passed. There's no way you find subsidy for petroleum products included in the document. Ideally, if you had a country where things were working fine, the way to counter this would be to increase wages, and people will be able to afford whatever multiply effect would happen. But we've got a multiple whammy in the way even the minimum wage cannot be afforded by majority of the states in this country. And if you have this in play, it will trigger, increase in cost and all of that. You talked earlier on about, Victoria, about the 2012 uprising, where they have things like Shopee and, all the palliatives that were put in place to help cushion the effect of the increase in pump price of petrol. It's a conundrum whether that worked in any way or thereabout. And it's the same argument that has been put out, that maybe if you had buses here or there, you had some transportation incentives thrown in here or there, infrastructure improvement, perhaps it could answer the question on increase in the pump price of petrol. So it appears that Victoria is offline, so we would throw it to you, Adiola, what you would like to see. If the government says we don't have the money for the subsidy, but we can put in improvements in transportation policy and infrastructure. As an entrepreneur, does that work for you?
Yes, it does. Some of us have been to better climes. Let me put it that way. It's unfortunate. Nigeria should have been the country to be described as the better place, the former giant of Africa. But I know that with proper planning, the right people taking decisions in this country, all these small things, because they're actually small in other countries. How much are all those buses that you put on the street or on the roads? How much are the buses? But if you tell them, go and bring 1,000 buses for now, or 10,000 buses, or 20,000 buses, I can tell you that the prices will be inflated. I think we should reach that point in Nigeria where government shouldn't be patronizing their friends. They should buy directly, because the major problem we have here is not that we can't provide the buses, or we can't provide trains to run on our roads. I mean, to run on the rails and all that, for us to have train stations and put so many things in place. But the problem now is that, okay, if we agree on that now, to make it easier for people to move around, and so we won't have to bother about the pump price and all that, and you say, okay, let's go and bring 10,000 buses, let's start with that, put them in major cities in Nigeria, some people will see it as business, rather than the solution it is meant to be. Some people will buy it at maybe $1,000 and come and claim $10,000. And then we're enriching people. That's why it's so difficult to even profile solutions to some of the problems we have in this country. Because immediately you say this is the way out, some people are seeing it as an avenue to chop and become richer. So it's not as if we don't have the solutions. It's not as if those in government right now don't have the solutions. But it's like the thing has become chop by chop kind of thing, without minding the level of poverty we keep plunging this country into. So for me, I would think if government were to be transparent and to be sincere, they should buy directly, make it open. We are buying so number of buses. This is the cost it will of bringing it into the country. Of course, they will waive the taxes from the ports, because this is for the country, and it's not for profit making. It's to ease the affairs of people. Of course, those buses are not going to be free. No, abroad you buy your Oyster card in the UK, you buy your card, you top up, you point, you put, and all that. So all those things can be done. And I know we have that kind of money. The kind of money is see, you would think Nigeria doesn't have money until they begin to you kidnap school children now, which is another thing I thought we were going to talk about. You kidnap now, the next thing you are hearing that they are paying 800 million. What that 800 million can do to
right.
provide transportation in a single city, you'd be amazed.
Adiola,
You'd be amazed.
Yeah, thank you very much. I guess it's the inequitable distribution of wealth and resources that's really the problem. You know, the poverty is rife. But thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you speak with us. Adiola Agoro, entrepreneur and journalist. All right, Victoria
so
Ibezumaheri, let's get your thoughts finally on this one. It was former military President Ibrahim Babangida who said, the Nigerian economy defies logic. And apparently that's what it looks like when you think about so many things we are going to have to do in quick time, but not enough time and resources to make it happen. If you throw in the pallet, you throw in the buses, throw in things to make life easier for the businessmen and residents with higher pump price of petrol. You think the magic can happen, or will it be government magic, to coin Fela Nicolakbo Kuti, in understanding just how bad a problem can even get from bad to worse?
Yeah, it's a long-term thing, and it's something that should have we have always had the resources, and we've always had the resources to do, but what we have not had is the political will to do the right thing. We have also not had that social contract, leaders that are willing to obey the social contract, which means we want to use power. We want to use national resources to make life better for citizens. I don't think that has happened, because where we are, even currently, I think in March 2020, I had the bit when you wanted to talk about the budget. When in response to the falling oil prices, they revised the budget benchmark from 50 within the 50 benchmark to $28 per barrel. And at that $28 per barrel, oil prices is close about $70 now. It means that we are operating at a profit. So the question is, if you are planning, if you have made projections based on $28 per barrel in your budget, and you are now hitting $70 a barrel. That gives you a margin of $50 for every barrel. It means that government has even more resources than it projected to meet the needs of its citizens. So if that is so, it means also that labor need not push for reviews for minimum wage. Labor need not spend several weeks and months begging for states to implement as little as 30,000 naira a month minimum wage. So I agree that a sensitization plan would be, sensitization communication plan to support the reforms is necessary. But the average citizen is not interested in your sensitization, is not interested in your communication strategy to make them understand. They're interested in the daily shocks they're going through. The civil servant is worried about coming to the bus stop. He has 200 naira in his pocket, and the transport the conductor wants is insisting on 500 naira. He's interested in solutions that will enable him be able to get to work without causing depots in his pocket. So those are the kind of solutions that our government should be thinking about. Will it come in the form of provision of transportation?
Victoria, we have to go now.
Safety net, will it come in the form of...
All right, we have to go now, Victoria.
Plans, all of these have to be...
Victoria Ibeze-Mohairi, the Executive Director, Spaces for Change. Thank you so much for bringing your perspective as a consumer, as an agent of change onto the program this morning. We thank you so much for your time and thoughts, and happy Mother's Day in arrears. Belated one to you. All right. Thank you so much, Victoria. All right, the conversations will continue because Nigerians do feel that maybe in the month of April, what was taken down by the federal government could be what will hit them. And at that point in time, it won't be shocking, but how convenient would it be when state governments still are arguing on their capability to pay the 30,000 minimum wage, over which Labour, took protests across the State House of Assembly last week. So the conversation keeps going from different dimensions. All the same, what we're looking forward to is something that will be very good for the people and also effective and sustainable by the government. We'll take a very short break. When we come back, News Hub continues. Just stay with us.